Steve. And it's my pleasure to introduce Sivanandini Moodley today for this webinar. It's great to have a new bi-monthly topic now for the webinars and all the British Council teaching resources, which is professional development. And this is the title of Raj's webinar today. Sivanandini has a degree BTH from UNISA. She's also got a PGCE from the same place. She got a B.Ed Honours in Inclusive Education, which is a really interesting, useful topic. And she's also got a qualification from the British Council, this CISELT. So I'd like to hand over to Sivanandini. Over to you.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good day from wherever you are watching us from. Our topic for today is lifelong learning or professional development. So our objectives for today's presentation is how do we understand professional development and whose responsibility is it? And also to promote professional development throughout our teaching career. Thank you, Linda. So a few questions to start. If you would like to write your answers in the chat, and we will try our best to answer them. Why do we need to do professional development, and how can we do it? So what I find with professional development is that sometimes when we at school and our heads of departments have a professional development meeting or a short course, then it's mandatory for us to partake in these sessions. But it might not always be what interests us. So in other words, we are giving over our professional development to somebody else, whereas our professional development should be our personal responsibility because we know who we are, we know what interests us, we know what pathway we want to follow with regards to teaching. And we know that teaching is a calling. It's not about the paycheck. It's about building children. It's about building a community. It's about building a nation. And then when do we do a professional development? I think that depends very much on where we are in our lives. You know, you could be an older teacher, and then you have more time on your hands. Your children have left home, and you don't have that responsibility. Or you may be a novice teacher, and you can really develop yourselves at that time. And then, or you could be a teacher with a family. So obviously, you are not going to partake in professional development that's going to be extremely demanding on your time and sacrifice your family. And then also to remember that your own mental health is very important. So please be careful as to how you proceed with your professional development and the demands that it is going to place on your life. So it's very important to have that pathway in your life, to really have a plan right at the beginning of your teaching career and then pursue it over your lifetime. Thank you, Linda. Okay, so why do we pursue professional development? So obviously it's to teach effectively. I was looking at some British Council websites, and they have very interesting very interesting information on action research, which is it's not just about planning a lesson and then teaching it in the class. It's actually to navigate how did your lesson go after the lesson. So it's before the lesson, it's during the lesson, and it's after the lesson. And that helps us to teach effectively because it ought to be meeting every child in a classroom at the point of their need. And then to improve various aspects of our teaching, we ought to be teaching as we ourselves as teachers are learning. So for example, if I taught a lesson on figures of speech, what can I do better the next time? Are we teaching the same lesson from last year to this year? Because learners change every year. So how are we meeting that need? And how are we developing ourselves in the different aspects of teaching? And then I think this is really important as well, to be relevant and to be up to date. In the age of technology and AI, we need to be relevant because the learners seem to know more about it than we do sometimes. And we need to stay up to date. We need to know the world that our learners are living in. And then also with regards to younger teachers, you know, they also know very much about technology. So sometimes professional development is not something that is formal. It can be really something that is informal, where a younger teacher is going to teach you on, for example, how do you maneuver the assessment program on the computer rather than in the old way where we would write it all down, you know, in a mark book. And I just want to share something of my own experience. When we went through the pandemic, all our schools shut down for quite a bit of time in South Africa. And teachers had, no matter how old you were, you had to get up to speed. For example, in our school, we had to learn how to teach and how to assess online, because especially for our final year learners who are going to pursue university the next year, we could not compromise curriculum delivery. We had to have them being taught. So we all had to learn how to teach online on Google Classroom. So it's very important that we stay up to date and that we stay relevant to our learners. And I know everybody's going to be thinking, Chat GPT. Thank you, Linda. So what is the format of our courses? Obviously, a full-time course if you can be a full-time student, part-time course if you are maneuvering other aspects of your life, and then short courses where you just need to focus on a specific area of your teaching, for example, literature. And then workshops that are offered by the various departments of education all over the world, and then which are mandatory to attend for us here. And then remember that your teaching qualification is only the beginning of your development. It is definitely not the end. And what I need to tell you is that you never, ever stop learning. I have a friend that says, learn always and teach always, as a teacher. And to tell you the truth, the teachers that actively pursue a professional teacher development are the teachers that stand out. And I saw something on a billboard that said, we are not created to fit in, we are created to stand out. So let's be that standout teacher. And then a question for the chat. How do you merge professional development knowledge with active teaching and learning? So you might find this funny, but what I find is that as teachers, we normally have our professional development at the end of the day when we are absolutely exhausted and we just can't wait for the meeting to end. And woe to the teacher that asks questions, at the end, because then you have to stay even longer. So it's you have to attend those, but it's preferable to pursue your own professional development. Take responsibility for your own lifelong learning, for your own professional development. Linda, are there any questions in the chat that we can answer now?
Not yet. Nobody's put
Not
any
yet.
ideas, any answers to that question yet. Does anyone have any other answers to that question? I've made a suggestion there. I think we need to merge the professional development knowledge with active teaching and learning by trying out new ideas in class and adapting them. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. Yes, I do.
No comments yet.
Thank you, Linda. Next slide, please. So we've said make time and when to have the professional development. When do we proceed with professional development? And then where? At home, watching videos, and then watching podcasts, and then watching, I don't know if TikTok has any professional videos. And then maybe somebody can tell us about that. And then it needs to fit into your life, which is a very, very good comment. It definitely needs to fit into your life. But be mindful of teacher well-being, having said that. It cannot envelop your whole life. Well, it depends where you are in your life, I guess. Next slide, Linda. Yes. How many attendees are actively involved in professional development at this time? If you are, please tell us what courses you are involved in. Share the links and discuss in accordance with British Council resources, teaching resources. Any answers in the chat, Linda?
There's a question here about online MEd programs. Are these encouraged as professional development? I wonder if you have any information about Masters of Education. Any online courses?
I think they are, I don't know about online, but I do know about part-time MEd courses that you can actually do whilst you are teaching. That I know about. Online, I'm not sure. Do you know anything about it, Linda?
I know there are some from UK universities, but they charge a huge amount of money for the online courses.
Mm.
There's actually a master coming up on online masters on assessment. I'm actually trying to promote it, very, very soon. So we'll share it with the group as well. It's offered by the British Council, so 2 seats for African teachers.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Any other questions, Linda?
Nothing, no, nothing yet.
Okay,
Somebody
next
said they
slide.
took two courses. Somebody said doing professional development courses, seven online learning courses. I think these must be the British Council online learning courses. I know lots of people do a lot of those courses. Webinars from Open University Press, OUP, and British Council and others. This is great. Lots of things people are involved in.
Okay. It's nice to know that. Next slide, Linda. Okay, I need my glasses for this. Okay. What or who has inspired you to do professional development courses? Friends, colleagues, authors, presenters. Please add your inspirations to the chat. Whilst you are doing that, I just need to tell you. Sometimes we think of where we are and we think we actually cannot do this. And, you know, there's always a bigger picture. I have a friend of mine that actually did her degree and her honors in Swaziland, which is a little country in Africa. And she did so well that she was offered a grant to study at the University of Pennsylvania to do her master's in the USA. And then she got a grant to do her doctorate in mathematics at the University of Sheffield in the UK. So, you know, when you pursue what you love and what is your passion, you cannot but, you know, you do well in it because it's what you love. And then we know what aspect of education we are passionate about. We know our strengths and weaknesses. We know our availability. So we are just punctuating what we've already spoken about. Next slide, Linda. Next slide, Linda. Oh, okay, right. So these are the professional development suggestions. There's teaching English, professional development, and then there's a skills webinar, and then there is a importance of professional development. There's another skills webinar, and then there's teaching English, making time, research English classroom. What I found really interesting was there are courses on. That's not me, right?
No, don't worry.
No.
With the sound. Okay. So there are courses on professional development and on action research, you know, and they sort of twins, and they are really, really good. For example, why do we do action research? We do action research because it gives us ideas on how to plan our lessons. It gives us access on how to understand our learners. It gives us help on how to manage the lesson, how to know our subject, how to manage our resources, and how to assess learned content, and then very importantly, how to integrate technology into our lessons. I find that a real catchword, well, for quite a while now, is how do you integrate technology into our lessons. And then what I also learned from these resources is what you are doing in the classroom working? Sorry, my dear.
It's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. And then how to explore our own practices, how to learn to make changes and improvements in our teaching. And how do we do this? And these are such practical tips, you know. Keep a diary of what you do in a class. That is so important because we teach different grades. So sometimes the next day you can't remember what you did the previous day. And then peer observation, that's very, very important, where you ask one of your peers, not only for your own development, but for their development as well, where they are able to help you as a teacher to improve. And then that can help you to do a professional development course, or you can discuss with your teacher, your peer, how can you do better? And that is professional development as well, where it's just one-on-one. I think that's very important to remember. And then what is also important to remember is student feedback. You know, are learners able to ask you ask you questions in a class. I remember once I was teaching a grade 10 learner, which is the first year of our 3 years of the final before they go to university. And we were studying Shakespearean work. And before we start, a child put her hand up and she asked me, "What is the point of this?" And I said, "What do you mean? What is the point of what?" And she said, "Of studying Shakespeare, because he lived so many years ago. And how can I relate to it now?" And I could tell them that the themes in Shakespeare are actually universal. You know, love, betrayal, hate, racism, discrimination. We can all relate to those themes. So a student should not be afraid to ask you a question. And like we always say, no question is a stupid question in a class. That can also be a professional development course that you can attend as well. I think where professional development is concerned, we focus much on how are we going to present the lesson, what must we teach, but then it's also to remember who we are teaching and what are our expectations with regards to them, and what are their expectations with regards to us as well. And that's how we develop professionally as well. Next slide, Linda. Resources, professional development suggestions. We develop through training other teachers. If you are if you do really well in a certain section in English, for example, you do really well in literature, over the teaching of language and grammar, then you can run a professional development course in your school or in your cluster or in your province. I'm talking South Africa. It would be different problem in the country that you come from. So don't wait to be professionally developed. You can professionally develop other teachers as well. And that is really important as well. And then, of course, teachers who know that a teacher is good at a certain aspect of English, encourage them to do a course to teach the other teachers. And then start to reflect about teaching in a systematic way. I spoke about that with the action research, where we reflective about the teaching that we've done already, and how have we presented the lesson? How can we do the lesson better? Thank you, Linda. Takeaway tips for all of us. Have a plan. Have a plan right at the beginning of your career, because you are going to spend at least 30 or 40 years in the profession. So have a plan. Have the confidence and the faith to have a plan at the beginning. And then monitor your progress. I think in this way, you can also have a mentor, where a mentor can help you to monitor your own progress, so that you don't get distracted in any way from where you want to go. And then share my story. So I was 50 when I formalized my teaching education. And then I did my PGCE, which is a certificate in education after having a degree. And then after that, I did my honors in inclusive education, which I think is imperative. It saddens me when teachers teach and they haven't had the inclusive education training. If you cannot help a child where they are at, different children where they are at, then it's really sad for the child. So I make sure as a teacher that no child leaves me the same in my class. Even if they are in grade 10 and they're struggling with writing, then I will teach them to write. They'll do A, B, C, D at the back of their book so that they learn to write clearly, which is very important in our further education training phase. And then Never let personal circumstances stand in the way of lifelong learning. I'm not sure whether that's everybody or is it some people, but we can let lifelong learning affect our progress because it can consume us. But remember that when we teach, we certainly do not do it for the paycheck. I don't know about other teachers, but whispering, we don't. We do it because we love to develop children. So please remember that your passion is very important for you. Obviously, teaching can't be the passion over everything in life. I'm saying this because teachers can work 24/7 at the expense of other aspects of your life, which is family, exercise, all of that. And then age can never be a barrier to lifelong learning. Unfortunately, ageism is a real enemy that we have to fight with determination. Thank you to British Council for recognizing hard work no matter what your age. And this is really sad because with experience comes hopefully maturity and knowledge, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel twice for the younger teachers. So, be willing to learn from older teachers. And then I've told you about my teaching career. Oh, yes. And then I did my honors in inclusive education at the age of 61. Please don't ask me what my age is now. And then always be ready to learn new skills. I trained to coach 2 different styles of debate in my 50s with great success. So there are 2 styles of debating that we do mainly in South Africa, which is the World School style of debate. And then we have the Model United Nations style of debate, which teachers from other countries might be aware of. And I only learned this style of teaching when I was in my 50s. And then I headed up the debates, the World School debate style in my cluster, in my district. And I adjudicated at provincial level. And then with the Model United Nations style of debate, which is very academic, and your team is actually given a country and a topic, and you have to act like you are that country and debate from that point of view. And they give you a topic like water. What is the water position in your country? Which countries are you helping? Which countries need help? Who are you going to partner with? And in September, my school actually won 2nd position for the best position paper. And then before that, they won for best delegate. So really, you are never too old to learn. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope you have many answers in the chat. Thank you, Linda. Next slide. So practical application. What is the link between professional development and teaching practice? It's absolutely imperative to professionally develop yourself so that you can be relevant and effective as a teacher. This is a question I'd like like you to answer in the chat. What do you see? What do you think are barriers to continuous professional development? How can teachers support each other with regards to professional learning development? Like I said before, if you notice that a teacher is an expert, sometimes the teacher might not be a teacher that will put themselves forward. You can be a teacher that can encourage that teacher to pursue a professional development course, in giving a professional development course. I need to say this, we shouldn't have any jealousy streaks in teaching. We should all be helping each other. How can teachers, should teachers be involved in the planning of continuous professional development together with senior management of their school? Absolutely, Yes, because otherwise the management are going to select courses which they think are important, but we are on the ground teaching. So it ought to be a partnership. You know, ask your management to include you in the management of professional teaching development, because then you are going to have courses that are relevant to you, relevant to your learners, relevant to your teaching praxis. Thank you. Next slide, Linda. Thank you. And any questions?
Okay, so we've had lots of comments in the chat, which is great. We've had lots of people talking about the courses they've done. There was one person, Nejashi, who's done 5 of the British Council courses, which is great.
Oh,
Congratulations.
awesome.
That's really, really good work. And we've got lots of other people talking about, yeah, somebody said they do have a teachers' discussion group every week in their school, which sounds like a great idea as well. Some people talking about inspiration. I'd like to say that all of the teachers in the whole of Africa are my personal inspiration, because it's easy when you have resources which are okay. It's easy when you have data connection. It's not easy, I know, when you don't have that and the data connection is weak, there's no internet, there's no resources. So my inspiration every day is teachers in Sub-Saharan Africa. Congratulations to everyone, especially for being here on a webinar at the weekend. It's a lot of dedication, isn't it? Okay, there was one question already, and I'd like to ask people to think of more questions. You can put your hands up as well now. The one question so far was, how can teachers on a low salary who are supporting their families, how can they afford to pay for courses? Rajesh, if you'd like to address that one.
Which country is the attendee from?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It didn't
Right.
say.
So in South Africa, I can only speak for South Africa, as only taught here. The courses that are offered by the departments of education are free. And obviously the courses that the schools offer are free, or the district or the province. And it's a real dilemma, you know, where you don't earn so much that it lends itself to professional development. I think that's where, and then obviously the British Council courses are free as well. But then also it's the data issue. That's the problem. So, gosh, you have to pray for data then.
I know it's very difficult. There are grants, very, very few and far between. There are things like the Chevening grant, the Hornby grant, but that's for 1 or 2 teachers every year, and it's only the very, very best after a huge amount of work. So yeah, very difficult. There's a question here. Some managers have no plan to accompany their teachers for professional development. What do you think? Maybe about how to help the managers to plan for the professional development?
So it's scary if managers in a school are not doing professional development courses. If I were in that school, I would start within my department, you know, have a professional learning community, and then have your own professional development courses. Run it by the management, of course, because you don't want to be seen as someone that's being tyrannical.
I think you're right, yeah, because somebody has to start, and it has to be someone who's motivated and who has some ideas. And also, you can just start with a lot of these British Council materials. Getting a webinar, watching it together, discussing it is some of the very best professional development. Maybe getting an article or a few lesson plans, and you can get these from the Teaching English websites, or even doing one of those courses. I wonder if anyone has started that new course yet. The latest course this week on doing action research. If anyone would like to tell us a bit about what they're learning on that course. If so, put your hand up. And there's another question here. Are there grants for primary and secondary school teachers? Do you know? Sivanandini?
Are there grants for
For primary and secondary school teachers, probably for professional development?
I'm going to answer by my own personal experience. I think being visible, that you are really passionate about what you do. And because that always comes out, obviously teachers love teaching and teachers love children. We want to see them develop. We want to see them, we have the bigger picture because whatever we teach them is going to help them to pursue their destiny. So I received a travel grant from the American Embassy to go to Portland in the USA last year in late March to attend the TESOL course. And yeah, it was a travel grant, and I'm a teacher from South Africa. So it's not an impossibility. I think if you make sure that you have a pathway, you are pursuing the pathway, and you are absolutely serious about what you are doing. And teaching means not the world to you, but teaching means a lot to you because we have so many other things in our world that we juggle. Then who's not going to notice you?
I think also this idea of visibility is great, isn't it? And I think people are often noticed more if they play a role in their teacher association. So if you have a teacher association in your country, if you can work up through that and start volunteering and organizing things for your teachers, you become more visible to these external associations like the American Embassy, like the British Council. And when these opportunities do come up, they'll probably look first to those who have been volunteering most.
Yeah? Very true. Very true.
There's another question here. To what extent do individual action plans and research help in enhancing job knowledge and professional development? So you were talking about the action plans and research. So how does that help improving your job and professional development?
I think provided that you are being, you are seeking out courses that are going to help you. For example, I'm not going to go and look at lesson plans for the physical sciences or life sciences or Afrikaans in South Africa. I'm going to look for courses on English in grades 10, 11, and 12. So that is going to enhance my teaching in the classroom. I think you sort of do it before hand, but then it can also be challenge driven. And the action research, of course, really helps you with that because you can sort of find out how and why do learners respond to something in a certain way. Is it only one learner or is it the whole class? And then as a teacher, we ought to be very perceptive as to what is happening in our class. Do we only answer the questions of the learners that sit in the front? Do we ignore the learners that sit at the back? Do we only ask questions to the learners that talk? Do the ones that are the shy students, do they sort of just pass through the classroom? I think it's those things. And then as a teacher, we should all, it's very easy sometimes to look at a child and there's something, maybe something wrong or something the child is going through. And then you can ask the child, when it's you and the child on the playground, is everything okay? Maybe you looked a bit troubled in the class. I think, and then you can find out how to deal with that kind of situation. I think it's important to marry professional development with the relevant knowledge that you need.
Right, yeah. And great to give a few examples there that you did of the action research, because maybe people are feeling a bit afraid of the whole research thing, because research sounds like a master's or a PhD. But this, the latest British Council course, it's not about that big, huge, time-consuming research. It's little tiny bits of research that you can just think about and, like your example, maybe monitor who you ask questions to. Is it the noisy ones or the quiet ones? Is it the girls or the boys? A little bit of research like that really does help your teaching. And we had one point just now made that fear of losing teachers makes school directors, school owners, not support professional development. That's maybe in private schools, people were saying. And maybe that's because the school owners think it'll make teachers feel they have too much to do. Do you agree with that? So they don't get teachers to do courses.
Yes, I think it's almost like, oh, there's one other thing to do now, you know. And but the thing is, you just have to make the time, you know, in order to be effective and in order to meet the child at the point of their need. You can't, for example, if it's a course on technology and English teaching, I can't close my eyes and ears and say, oh, I'm too tired today and I can't do this course. You have to do it because that's what's happening at the moment. And you don't want to be left behind.
That's a good point. Yeah. And
And
somebody's
then,
saying they're going to explore the course as soon as we're done with the webinar. Excellent.
that's great.
And there
Linda,
was
you said something at the beginning of that question about the management not wanting to develop teachers professionally because they're nervous that they're going to leave the school.
Yeah, no, they might lose the teachers by making them
They
do
might
too much.
lose the teacher.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't know. I think if they're going to professionally develop teachers and they're going to leave the school, they will probably leave for a higher position or something like that.
Maybe,
you know. Yeah.
And there's a question that came up just now. What are the main ways that you would suggest to change the chalk and talk mentality? So this is maybe a basic professional development area. What would you suggest? And while Sivanandini is answering that, if we have any hands up, we'll have a little bit of time to answer anyone who'd like to voice their question. So that question then, ways to change chalk and talk.
Ways to change chalk and talk. I think the use of technology obviously is going to change chalk and talk. You know, the child that we are teaching at the moment is very different from a child of, say, maybe 5 years ago. And technology becomes very, very important in the classroom. So you can, for example, if I'm teaching a poem, it doesn't have to always be me talking and me writing on the chalkboard. There are wonderful resources that you can use where you can use your phone and they can listen on the phone to that commentator's interpretation of a poem. So you're veering away from chalk and talk. And obviously the data projector, that's veering away from chalk and talk as well. And then also, I read something also in the action research where you do, you know, are you the only one talking in the class? Is the teacher the only one talking in the class? So you manning the chalk and you talking. So are your learners allowed to maybe work in groups? Sometimes learners are not mature enough to do group work because once you put them together, then they talk about everything else but the topic that you've given them. So it's important to have like a leader of a group and let them do some research, maybe give them the poem beforehand and ask them to do some research on that poem. Maybe at our school, we don't allow them to bring their cell phones to school, but maybe for that day, you ask for permission and they can bring their cell phones to school, and then they do the research of that particular subject. So you're veering away from chalk and talk as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think so. It's like building up with group work, getting students involved more. Yeah. Somebody asked, how can we begin to start learning from our experience as a language teacher at university? I'm not sure whether that's a teacher teaching at university or if you're learning while you're learning to be a teacher at university. So how can we begin to start learning from our experience, maybe?
Can you repeat that question for me, Linda?
How can we begin to start learning from our experience?
From our experience. So if you are a teacher, how do you learn from your experience? I think that's learning from other teachers. And obviously, you know what is scary about that is when teachers come out with a formal degree from a university, but they lack the practical skills of teaching. You know, they don't know how to do a lesson plan. They don't know about context. They don't know about inclusive education. Then you have to develop yourself very quickly with regards to that. You don't want a learner to get to grade 10 and then that teacher finds out that this child actually has a problem hearing. Because with inclusive education, we learn that if the same learner keeps asking you to repeat something, then there just might be a problem with hearing. Or if a learner has her eyes very, very close to the book, there might be a problem with sight. So they need to go and have their eyes tested. So a lot of experience comes with how long you are teaching, but I don't think you should wait for how long you are teaching. As soon as you know you're going to be a teacher, go to an experienced teacher and ask them, what should I look out for? What should I develop myself with right now, where I am now? Where must I start? That's a very interesting question. And
Isn't
I,
it?
I admire that person's humility to ask that question.
And I think it's a question of being open, isn't it, to
Yes,
learning from the
very much,
students and learning from what happens.
very,
I think that
very much.
reflective practice link that Sivanandini shared
Mm,
earlier is
yeah.
a really good one to think about that.
Mm,
I
mm,
think one final question, I think then. The last one is a very good one. See,
mm.
continuous professional development takes a long time, takes a lot of time and effort. How do we motivate teachers to carry on developing?
We have to, we talk a lot about meeting our learners at their point of need, but we also have to meet our teachers at their point of need. So I don't think we must have long courses, We should have short courses, interesting courses, presented by professionals. There was a school that I taught at. It's a remedial school when I was doing my PGCE, and I would not be the teacher I am now if it were not for that background that I had. Every month, they would get in a professional to come in and develop us professionally with regards to autism, ADHD, all kinds of barriers to learning. So I think that's very, very important to do that.
Great. And maybe we can leave one of the last words with Fozia's comment from the chat
Mm,
here. It's more of a comment than a question. How do
mm,
you relate professional development strategies with the way we teach our students? As students, our education system was not equipping us with self-directed learning methods. So when we grow up as adults, we don't know exactly where to go or how to go about it. Fozia is from Ethiopia. So I think it should start from the way we teach our students. Today's learners are tomorrow's teachers. Would you agree with
mm.
Fozia?
Yes. Oh, definitely, I do. Today's learners are definitely tomorrow's
Great.
teachers. I get very excited when I ask our final year students, what are you going to study next year? And they say teaching. I
Great,
think
isn't it?
that's a
We have
big
that effort, yeah,
compliment.
effect to motivate them. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So I'd like to hand back to Steve now, and the discussion will carry on Friday in the Telegram group. Over to you, Steve. Thanks so much, Rajesh, for that webinar.
Yes, it was
Thank you,
very
Linda.
interesting. I think you shared so much motivation today. And sharing the fact that teachers need to also be role models, you know, with other teachers, to other teachers, and the fact that it's actually beyond just just a paycheck. I think it actually rings a bell to me. I think, if you have, outside motivations, motivation outside of, the compensation, I think you get to sort of develop more, both yourself, but also, your community as a teacher. So thank you so much for this great, this great webinar. Yeah, unfortunately, I know a lot of teachers haven't been able to sort of register. We had some issues with the Zoom link for some reason over the past few days. So I'm sure the recording would actually come in handy for the majority of teachers who were looking forward to join the session today. But I would just want to take this chance to invite everyone on Friday the 13th next week, where Sivanandini will also share sort of look into the takeaway tips she shared today, and how we can actually discuss more ways to support teachers across the region. So thanks so much everyone for joining. Thanks Linda for impressive hosting, and I wish you a nice weekend everyone, and I'll see you next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye everyone. Thanks,
Bye.
Regis. Thanks,
Thank you.
Steve.
Bye, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manani.
Bye.
Bye.